Hi Bethlehem, this is Pastor Paul. This past Sunday we started a new sermon series entitled Kingdom Stories as we take a look at some of the parables that Jesus taught. Parables are stories and they're meant to illustrate the teachings of Jesus. And stories are one of the ways that we communicate. Think about meeting a friend and they ask you, well, how's your day been? And yeah, we'll respond, well, it's been a good day or things are going fine. But often we will respond with a story to illustrate what's going on in our life. And similarly, Jesus used stories to illustrate the truth about the kingdom of God. Now, these stories, while they were meant to illustrate or shed some light on the truth, they also require some work, because if you're not really wanting to understand about the kingdom, they just become nice little stories. But if you want to really understand the depth of the truth that Jesus wants to get at, they require meditation and thought and application. And that's the point of the first parable that we looked at on Sunday, Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 through 9, the parable of the sower. Jesus told this story of a man who went out to plant his field, and he wanted to plant that field as close to the edges as possible. And so as he throws his seed, as he broadcasts it, as he plants it, the seed falls into 4 different types of soil. And that soil receives this seed in different ways. So for us to understand this parable, we have to understand 3 parts of that parable. First, we have to understand, well, who's the farmer? Who's the sower? Who's planting that seed? And that's Jesus. Jesus came to reveal himself to us. He came to tell us about the kingdom of God, to restore that relationship that we have with God. And so he came to do this work, to teach us, to show us the way. And what's the seed that he's planting? Well, the seed is the gospel. The gospel is the good news. It's the proclamation that Jesus is the one true King of the universe, and that through his death, resurrection, and return, everything will be made right. That the kingdom is about justice being done. It's about new creation happening. And the soils are you and I. You know, there are the hard people who want nothing to do at all with the gospel, with Jesus. There are those who are shallow, who receive it with joy, but don't want to make the commitment to truly follow Jesus. And so they don't have any roots and they shrivel up and die. There's those who are in among the weeds, and there's no room for the gospel to really take root and to flourish because we have so many things competing in our lives. And then there's the good soil that the gospel grows and is multiplied. And what Jesus wants us to understand, he wants us to think about which type of soil we are and how can we become that good soil. We have to do the hard work of receiving the gospel, the truth that Jesus has for us. See, to be a disciple of Jesus requires more than just hearing the gospel. It requires listening, application, and thinking about how does this apply to our lives. So our big idea is that we must do the hard work of listening to Jesus, meditating on his word, on his teaching, and then applying it to our life. And so our challenge this week is to read every day and meditate on Mark chapter 4, verses 21 through 25, the parable of the lamp that we'll look at next week. Thank you, Bethlehem, for listening. I want to remind you of our hiking trip to Forestville on Saturday. We'll meet here at the church at 8 o'clock. Bring a sack lunch, and we'll see you then. God bless.